So, Julian Porter, how long have you been curator of Bexhill Museum?
28 years, something like that. It's 92 anyway.
28 years, it's a long time. And you're good at, you like the curating, don't you? You like
I do like a bit of curating.
The research. And so, people may not know this. Bexhill-on-Sea, which is people watching, or maybe you're watching this at Bexhill-on-Sea, south coast of England, so near Hastings, Battle of Hastings, a lot of history there. There's prehistoric history, there's Eastbourne just down the road, Brighton further over. But we used to have 26 schools here, didn't we?
46.
46, I've been saying 26.
200 in total. There's about...
Hang on, 200?
Yeah, if you take the individual named schools, it's something like 180 private and then about 20 church and state.
That's in
it's
all?
Insane,
That's
yeah.
in all?
And some of them aren't there for very long.
Okay.
Because they're not that, if you're a lady and you're educated, there weren't very many jobs you could do in the old days, but you could become a teacher. And if you didn't want to get married and do all that, you could start your own school. So quite often these schools, the lady get educated, open a school in your house, run it for 10, 20 years, and then when you retired, you'd close the school again. So some of them aren't there for very long, and they literally run in people's front rooms.
And a small amount of pupils, therefore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in total, in Bexhill, there have been a total number of?
200 schools.
200 schools over about 150 years?
200 years.
200 years, okay. 200 schools again?
Yeah, one a year.
This is okay, I got
And the first one was German.
The first one was German. Why was that?
Because 1804, the King's German Legion turned up in Bexhill to keep Napoleon out.
Yes, people should know about this because and people don't know about this, that the British were with the Germans on every war until the 1900s.
And Hitler was counting on this, I think.
Yes, well, yes, that's why, because it seems like a crazy idea that Hitler would say, oh, the English/British could get together with Nazi Germany, but because historically that had been the link.
We'd always been rude about the French, so you would have thought, well, like...
Yes, well, you're always rude about whoever's next to you. This is the thing. If you look at countries, everyone's rude about the country right next to them. And also the monarchy is almost completely German. It's a Saxe-Coburg-Gotha who suddenly said, oh, World War I, with the Windsors, it was nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
But
so George III is the Elector of Hanover at this point. So the lads from Hanover, because Napoleon overruns Hanover, they all come over here because it's the same king. And the infantry end up in Bexhill, cavalry end up in Weymouth, and they have a school in the barracks. And it's a German school, and William Dorling, who grew up to be the printer in Bexhill, who later on was Mrs. Beaton's stepfather, apparently he always said his prayers in German because he went to the King's German Legion School and they taught in German.
Ausgezeichnet, Zach. That's excellent. So therefore the German influence could be why the Augusta Victoria College was here.
It's very deep.
Okay.
Although what we found out since doing the film is Augusta Victoria herself turns up just before World War I. There's this article that they print during World War II that doesn't mention the Augusta Victoria College, even though the girls had only been gone for 18 months, but talks about the Deutsches Pädagogium, which was the school run by Dr. Blasnek on the Down. And the Kaiser's nephew went there, and his aunt, Augusta Victoria, visited at least twice. Okay,
so this is crazy. So this is more information that you probably need back at home watching or standing and watching, or have you watching this. But we should say the film 6 Minutes of Midnight, which we can see through the window here, it's now 2021 and the film is out. But I became a patron of the museum about 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah, 12, at least 12 I think.
And you mentioned the fact there have been a load of schools in Bexhill, 200 we now know, but at the point in the 30s, how many were there?
46 when the war started.
46? I said 26, and I thought that was a lot.
You got some spare, you got some change.
So I've been getting this figure completely wrong. Oh well, 46, and one of them was...
Nazi.
One of them was Nazi. There, you just cut straight to the quick. Now, I assume, because it started in 32, that's what we believe, yeah?
Yeah. As did Hitler.
No, he's 33.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, he's January 33. So, we see, my point is that this school was started and it couldn't have, probably wasn't overtly Nazi sympathetic. In the end, all teaching establishments in Germany had to be Nazified, had to have Nazi teachings. The books were how if you have this many bombs landing on this many people, how many will die? I mean, ridiculous things like this that they were teaching children. So it probably started off because you've seen the pictures in the newspapers, Bexhill Observer. You showed me these pictures of the people of the girls of the Augusta Victoria College dancing in traditional costumes, and that didn't look overtly Nazi. But I think it must have gradually got more and more Nazi. Would I be right in thinking that?
I think so. I mean, this is a big charm offensive. And also, we see this peculiar change in the school badge, that the original I showed you has got the German Imperial flag, and we know by about 33 that's dropped.
Are you sure of that, or 33? Because I think they kept it after 33. I think they got in.
I think it's the other way around.
I feel the Nazi flag becomes almost the German flag in about 35, 36.
Right, yeah.
Because the imperial flag they kept hold of, because that was Weimar, we don't like that flag.
Yeah.
And I think the Weimar flag is very close to the flag that now exists for Germany, which is red, gold, and black. And they reached back to the imperial one to say traditionalists were going for that, we're right wing, that's where we're going. And then the Nazi one was in and amongst the imperial one. That's how I believe it happened in Germany. So probably what was happening in the school here was mirroring what was happening in Germany.
Yeah, because Frau Rockel is zooming backwards and forwards between Bexhill and Kassel. So this is his jet set at the time. She'd get on a plane and go home to Kassel and then come back.
And where's Kassel?
Kassel is the part of Germany that she actually came from. So that's where her family home was.
Near which big city?
Oh, goodness. That I don't know.
Okay.
My geography is pretty wrong.
Middle of Germany, you don't know where it is?
We'd have to look it up, I think.
Sarah, can you look up Kassel? How do you spell Kassel?
Kassel. Because I think one of the descriptions of the badge, that lion, was described as the Lion of Kassel. So that's where I assumed it was the English lion, but it's not.
So anyway, you're finding it? Yeah. Is it coming up? Yeah. Near what? What's the big city that's near? In the middle of Germany. Exciting. Just
research in action.
Just go macro and.
Kassel is it's sort of really quite slap bang in the middle.
Okay, middle of Germany. Near any big city?
No, not really. No. The nearest ones around is Hanover to the north, Dortmund to the west, Frankfurt to the south.
Okay, Frankfurt, if people heard of Hanover. Okay, so there you go. So this is where she was just flying back. So you had to have money to do this.
I know, and she had a car, so she could drive herself around. So quite an independent lady.
She had a car here.
The Opel car that survives World War II. The Mepham's garage gets blown up, and the only thing that survives is Frau Rockel's car.
Oh, wow. Now, Frau Rockel was a German woman. In the film, she becomes Miss Rockel and becomes English, and played by Judi Dench. So that was something we did with the story. But the school was there. This is the thing that people find fascinating, I think will find fascinating. It was there. It's still there, isn't it?
Still there.
And they're selling off flats in that. I've got to go up and have a look at it today. They're selling off flats there. And I was saying, people could be signing agreements right now and I suppose leasing a flat in the building that was Lindsay Hall, 128 Dorset Road. And they're staying, and there's a film right out there about stuff that the girls did. Now, a lot of our story is from our imagination and artistic license, but we do know that they did listen to Hitler's speeches on the radio.
We do. We know that from the au pair, Molly Hickey, who tells that very scary story with the arm gesture, which we won't talk about.
No, well, let's talk about it, because, I mean, the Hitler salute, it's the Nazi, let's call it the Nazi salute, because Sieg Heil, and as you explained in the film, that was saying a hail victory, which means victory is coming to us, which means if you're extreme right wing, you're going to win everything, and then Germany, and it was all this right wing nonsense propaganda. But it's a beguiling thing to saying, are you a member of our club? Do you want to be a member of our club? We're going to win everything and dominate the world. But then underneath it, and other people we will subjugate and we will treat them as subhumans, and then we will murder them. And this went on through Nazi Germany, of which a number of citizens, I think, just didn't pay attention. The people who lived near concentration camps, they just turned a blind eye to it. Because we've got, this is a very different thing, but I think people in democratic countries, there is a prison, there might be a prison in your town, in your city, but you don't necessarily go in and say, let me check what's happening in that town, what the conditions are like. You just say, that goes on, and I'm or what happens in prisons, what happens at a police station. Just that if anyone is arrested, you just go, well, they're arrested because they probably did a bad thing. And I try and put myself in the place of an average German person and going, oh, someone's been arrested. Oh, they must have done bad things. Not that they're just Jewish and they've been arrested for no reason, or they're communist, or their political opinions are different to the Nazis. This is the trouble with the Nazi thinking. But they were basically, I feel, they were criminals running a country. That's what they did, and they were using lies as a tool of politics, which went away in 1945 and has come back, I do believe, to the world, unfortunately.
But we know things were going badly wrong, because, I mean, this is why we get the Delaware Pavilion, because Erich Mendelsohn is a Jewish refugee,
Yes.
comes over in 1933 and brings this style of architecture with him.
And it wasn't in Britain at that time, the modernists?
No, this international modernism is a European style of building, which the Nazis didn't like. So it wasn't favoured architecture for the Nazis, but this is that new wave of European architecture coming in through Bexhill.
And interesting, why did they not like it? And didn't they build certain buildings like that, the airport, whichever one was it? It's not Tegel Airport, but the other one that's big.
They're big, but they're sort of more neoclassical, I think.
Is
It's
that
this sort of this idea of sort of master race Aryan.
Right.
It's not. It has to be the right sort of culture as far as they're concerned.
Right. Okay. So, well, they didn't like that. So the school is there, and gradually the imperial flag of Germany disappears from their badge, and then it's just the German swastika and the British Union Jack, which is the one that I remember, which I saw, which I showed to people, and fired this whole thing up. And it is now the beginning sequence of the film. You see.
I mean, it's a strange artifact, that badge, because you get a weird feeling looking at it, because there's something wrong there.
Yeah, we don't want ever the Union Jack and the Nazi swastika to be together, but some people unfortunately do, or did back then. And yes.
But it's almost a little glimpse of what might have happened if things had gone the other way.
Yes, absolutely, that would have happened. We know this from countries, well, we know this from the Channel Islands, that people were forced to interact with Nazi administration, the police. There's the famous picture of a German soldier talking to a policeman in Alderney or Guernsey or Jersey, one of the Channel Islands, and they had to, because they were a policeman and they were occupied by the Nazis, so you have to interact, I suppose. But how much you interact was the question. So we know that they did listen to the speeches, and it's interesting, would that have been live radio, I wonder, or a recording?
I think it was. I mean, they were very advanced with the technology, as we found out to our cost. Fortunately, they didn't have any radar, but with the radio, and I think they were getting into television as well. That was something that they were pioneering.
I was thinking you couldn't get live broadcasts, but you could, because the BBC was sending out broadcasts during the war, and that's from 39 onwards into Europe.
The Nazis invented daytime television. I think that was one of the things they kept going.
Yes, I know they were into pushing things in that way. So, it's a rough old time. Anyway, so it was about 10 years ago you showed me the badge. And I started trying to work on characters, and I said I was going to do this film for ages, didn't I?
Yes.
It must have seemed like a joke in a way, like it wasn't really going to happen.
A dream, rather than a joke.
Yes, probably a dreamy thing. One of these plans. But I kept pushing it, and then gradually it became into a position where it was going to happen. And then I said that we were going to film it, because I wanted to film it here, I wanted to film it in the Delaware, and I wanted to film it in Bexhill and Eastbourne, but they said, no, we've got money from Wales, so we have to shoot it in Wales, but it still looks pretty good. I haven't noticed many people saying that's not Sussex, actually.
Leafy Sussex and leafy Wales, it's not a bad match.
Yeah, some of the cliff faces look a slightly different colour, but then we've got the Weald is different colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
So as soon as you get to Galley Hill, that's a different colour to the Downs, which is Eastbourne. But anyway, it doesn't matter. When the girls are leaving with the briefcases and the sun's going down, it's kind of briefcases with their travel cases, I should say. That looks quite stunning. So so we based it on the foundations, and those foundations were real. And there was a Frau Rochel there.
Frau Rochel and a Baroness von Korff, who's the other character that doesn't appear in the film.
No, because having a Baroness there, I just thought would because you think a Baroness is, so there's a Mrs. Rockall, and a baroness is her servant. Not her servant, her
second in command.
Second in command, yes.
We think somehow they're related. Because we still get German students coming to Bexhill, we did before the lockdown. So we get sent a German student every year.
Right.
And one of the last ones, Malta, was really interested in this. So he went back to Germany and started researching all of it and found a lot more information about Frau Rockall. And we think somehow there's a connection by marriage between the Baroness and Frau Rockall. But I think the thing was that the Baroness is really more interested in how aristocratic the girls are.
Right.
And I think Frau Rockall is more interested in how Nazi they are. So they're quite different characters.
That's interesting.
But I mean, I wonder how much of Molly Hickey ends up in the film, Mrs. Rockall.
Yeah, Mrs. Rockall, I think, is kind of Molly Hickey. Because particularly when Molly Hickey, I asked her, I didn't think I asked her. She said, people keep saying, oh, it was very Nazi, and it wasn't very Nazi. They weren't really into the Nazis. And I thought, oh, well, I don't necessarily believe that, but I hear that you've said it. But then at the end, I felt her guard slip when she said they went up to the German embassy. We know they went to the German embassy because, and that must have been because the German foreign secretary, whose name was walked out of my head, von Ribbentrop, yeah, Martin von Ribbentrop, his daughter was at the school. That's how they would have got access. I think if she wasn't at the school, I don't think they would have necessarily been.
And Molly says Bettina von Ribbentrop was very Nazi and very nasty. Which two things go together.
Yeah, but, I think that's why the nasties and the Nazis, yes, it's particularly in English. So, and she was, we know that her brother was being dropped off in an armor-plated Mercedes or a big Mercedes with Nazi guards, because that's what Peter Ustinov said when her brother was being dropped off at his school. So probably she got the same treatment.
But Molly said that Ribbentrop didn't visit Bexhill, and I'm just wondering whether she misremembers, because I was talking to John Dowling and he said there was a story about people would see Ribbentrop driving around Bexhill in his car, so even that might have happened.
Yes, I think that could well have happened.
Because we started with this legend, this Bexhill legend about Nazi officers being seen hanging around at the Cooden Beach Hotel just before the war, and that is sort of semi-mythical, we don't know. But then when you understand that the Augusta Victoria College was here, there may be some truth in that. Yeah, and I don't suppose you'd wear uniform when you are in a foreign country. Well, maybe you did, because the Nazis would go around in their it's the brown shirts, isn't it? You had to. Yeah, it's interesting, but you could have worked out that these people were soldiers or military types because of their bearing and their haircuts, and well, everyone had those kind of haircuts back then. So there was a lot of talk about spies. I mean, we have made a spy story that's from our imagination, but who knows what the truth was. But we do know Operation Sea Lion, Operation Seelower, would have come through this area. Right through this area. Absolutely. And if Norman's Bay is where William the Conqueror landed, then it's just logical to say, well, if that's good enough for a Norman invading army, wouldn't it be good enough for a Nazi invading army? But we had Spike Milligan here to keep them out, so that was fine, and a bit of Dad's army in there as well. So Spike Milligan was based here and was playing in the Delaware, playing at the Granville Hotel, where my brother worked in his teenage years. So if people read Spike Milligan, Adolf Hitler, My Part in His Downfall by Spike Milligan, they will hear a lot about the time in Bexhill, his time. Two important sources for Bexhill in World War II, Spike Milligan and your dad. Yeah. That's where we got most of the information from. Yeah, and my dad's book, Izzard, a Bexhill family story, which is available on Amazon. And I've got the audiobook done now. I've done this audiobook. I should actually let you listen to it because I need to check it and get it out there. Because it was your dad, because we were trying to work out some old pictures of Sidlin. It was your dad said, well, these must be wartime because there are white stripes along the base of all the lampposts and all the trees, and that was because of the blackout. And then I was able to date some of these pictures because of that. And then every time I see a photograph now with the white stripes, I think, John told me that's wartime. Well, tell me more about the stripes. Well, because of the blackout, people are crashing into everything. Right. So all of the bases of trees and all the lampposts, they'd put like 2 or 3 white stripes. near the base, which are just enough in a little bit of torchlight or a little bit of moonlight, you'd see them and you wouldn't walk into them.
Because I think the headlights were actually dipped down, weren't they? They were
slatted.
Slatted. Oh, so you're right. So you could just pick up a little bit of light. Oh, I see. I never picked up on that. Well, I do know that Dad was up there with my grandmother, his mother, standing up at Sidley, which was a higher point, is a higher point, and he saw a fighter bomber go from Eastbourne down to Bexhill, shooting up things as it came, maybe dropping bombs as well, but they did that in about 5 minutes. He said, well, it would come down right over there. I mean, just amazing to... They just stood there and watched.
And there's talk, you know, people might remember being machine gunned in the street, having to hide because there's basically gunfire going along the street.
Really? In Bexhill?
Yeah, because they're just these tip and run raids. Later on, it's really just to try and demoralise everybody because they couldn't come very far inland because the RAF would intercept them. But they just come in off the sea, shoot the town up, drop a bomb, and then go back out again.
Wow. And if people go to the Bexhill Museum, you can see the Bexhill 1940 winter wartime model railway that has blown up houses, gun emplacements, loads of things, about 60% accurate Bexhill and Sidley landscape with trains, computerized lights, and it's all covered in snow, the snows of 1940, which are the heaviest that they've been for many years. And that's now almost completed, isn't it?
And of course the Delaware got blown up, or at least that end of the Delaware.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Got blown, because the Metropole Hotel was down there. So May 1940, the RAF used it as a billet, and they set fire to it. And then in September, the Luftwaffe come back and finish off the job by dropping a bomb on it, and that takes out the back of the stage and the auditorium as well. So there's a huge amount of war damage, because there was one of the local myths was that the Delaware wasn't bombed because it was a German building. Now that's clear, it was a German building, but it got bombed. But we know from a visiting Lufthansa pilot who'd previously been Luftwaffe that they did use the Delaware as a navigation point because it's so distinctive on the seafront. There's not that many landmarks around here, but the Delaware stands out.
God, yes, that's true. As someone, because I have a pilot's license, so you do look for big things to say, oh, I know what that is, and then you can guide yourself in. Anyway, so to wrap up, I think we've probably been going on long enough. Yeah. To wrap up, 6 minutes to midnight. It's out there. It's on Sky TV. It's on Now TV, which is an app, a streaming app that you can buy, which is different to Sky, but you can see it through that. It's available around the world. You'll be able to download it and iTunes it in the future. And it is based on a truth from Bexhill. 128 Dorset Road in Bexhill is the place where the school was, and the building is still there. And it's now turned into flats. But the actual one we shot at was called Getley Eye Country Park in Carmarthenshire. And you can go there and see that. It's amazing. That's an amazing building. But a crazy story. And then Judy Dench, Jim Broadbent, and I'm in it, and loads of other great people. And thank you to all your help.
Pleasure.
And what's the best interview? Do you think the Times of Israel is the best interview?
Times of Israel article, pretty good.
Article. Yeah, if you go Times of Israel and put in 6 minutes to midnight, and you'll see an article there that's got a lot of the history that's coming from Julian. It was an interview with Julian, with them, and I talked to them as well, but it's got a lot of interesting facts in it.
I mean, it was a great story that I think needed telling.
Yeah, good to get it out there. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. So what did you just tell me? Okay, we just finished this, and then Julian said this. He said, oh, I didn't tell you about the spy in the Delaware Pavilion in 1940.
Well,
tell us
the Nazi spy in the Delaware Pavilion.
Definitely?
Well, it's a newspaper report, but the story is that somebody was drawing back all the curtains and turning all the lights on in the Delaware during the air raids, and they couldn't work out who was doing this. Now, you wouldn't do this for fun. This was deadly serious. Now, I did talk to the son of the person who reported it during the war, and for evidence, they found a half-eaten sandwich, which I think proves it.
Well, the thing you said earlier was that the shape of this and the white roof gives a good landmark from the sky to be able to visually clue in on and say, I know where I am now. And as someone who has a pilot's license, it is bizarre. You're looking for block shapes that are different. So if they could turn on lights as well, which would attract the eye, then you could get over it and go, I know that shape. I can see from the white outline of it what that is. Then that could be true.
I mean, it does sound like an episode of Dad's Army, but we got this from a witness who was working here at the time, who used to go up on the roof and make sure that incendiaries hadn't landed. So they were getting in terrible trouble with the air raid wardens because of this. But I mean, the light that would have been put out by just turning the lights on inside the Delaware with no blinds would have been tremendous.
And I need to add one other thing, and then we're going to stop, which is that Spike Milligan says, if you go up Devonshire Road, our main street, shopping street, a lot of people had sex standing up in doorways there. Now, I'm just mentioning this because it's not kind of the Bexhill thing, but you need to know a lot of sex happened in doorways, but these are doorways anywhere in wartime, people were having sex in doorways, standing up. This is the thing, which is much more arduous than having sex like that. But I just think that Bexhill had never seen so much sex happening before and World War II and since World War II. I think it's right in that time.
That's why they called it the baby boom, I guess.
Yes, there you go. Anyway, that's all from the Delaware Pavilion.